Welcome to Sandlot The Crew, where Sandlot Radio Show meets Wrecking Yard Baseball and Softball. I'm your host, Will Kiger, a.k.a. Wrecking Yard Will, and we are live from the Wrecking Yard here in Torrance, California, beautiful South Bay. Next to me, I got owner, operator, former Division I player, and professional player, Mr. Mason Morioka. Next to him, I have CIF Champion head coach in his first year at Penn High School. He's also one of our coaches here at Wrecking Yard and Wrecking Crew. He gives lessons. He's a big asset to us. Next to him, we have young coaching star on the rise, Mr. Jake Hicks. He was on the first ever Wrecking Crew team. He's played under Mason and played and coached here for a long time, so we're happy to have him. If you did not see the last segment, make sure you go check that out. We were talking about, God, what were we talking about? Social media, yeah, how social media has affected youth baseball. We have a ton of other great interviews between Sandlot Radio Show and here. We've interviewed Mookie Betts, Kiger, Hernandez, to name a few, and we got a lot more on the way, so make sure you guys like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Special shout out to our sponsors, South Bay Credit Union and Restore Hyper Wellness. And in this segment, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons of Little League baseball and travel baseball. So to start it off, I think obviously Little League is, you know, it's recreational. It's a great place for kids to get a good base, play with their buddies, learn some of those basic skills. But obviously it doesn't really super prepare you for travel ball or the high school level where you're leading off and doing all these kinds of things. Mason, how do you feel about kids playing Little League?
I am a big fan of kids playing Little League. You know, I think it's, you know, where the first part of us finding love for the game is, right? 100%. You know, you figure out like, hey, I really like this. Even though I fail, you know, I really like this sport, you know. But to Will's point, I do believe that playing Little League in a way hinders a player from excelling to his highest level because, you know, there are different rules. Little League is played under different rules than travel ball, you know, or going into high school or going into college, etc. You know, so if your kid, in my opinion, if your kid is just learning the game and needs to get those kinds of repetitions and not have somebody that's super hard on them, I think that Little League is a great place to be. But with travel ball, you know, if the goal is to get to the highest level possible, you know, that's where you want your kid to be. You know, the other thing is that not every kid is ready for travel ball, you know, and I think some parents push that because they feel like they're missing out. Mm-hmm. And I think that's kind of the unfortunate part of it as well is, you know, a lot of these parents are pushing their kid to play travel ball. They unfortunately fall behind. And, you know, a lot of kids lose that passion at, unfortunately, kind of an early age, you know, whether that be 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and they go to find a different sport or a different passion, you know, whether it be an instrument or another sport or whatever the case may be, just because they kind of fall out of love with the game of baseball.
Right. Absolutely. Jake, how do you feel about kids playing Little League?
You know, I was heavily around Little League, especially because my dad was the president of our Little League for a while. And, you know, it gives you a lot of lessons throughout Little League. And, you know, like I always got the pressure of, you know, oh, your dad's the president, oh, your dad's the coach, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, like I think like the biggest memory I have throughout baseball, because when you get older, you know, you forget some of the games that you have. Right?
Absolutely.
Like as you get older, you start forgetting more of the games. And the number one thing I'll always remember is my first home run in Little League, right? And I think that's all of us here is like, you always remember that first crack at the bat. And you're like, oh my God, I just did it. Finally, I did it, you know, and you feel like the guy. And, but there's also like, you know, if you feel like that you're ready, I've seen so many guys opt out and be like, you know, I'm going to start travel ball. I'm going to opt away from my last couple of years. I'm going to go into travel ball. We have a guy here, Alex Tanzillo, that did it. And I think he's beyond ready for whatever comes next. And, you know, that's my guy. And we're obviously all here to prepare for him. But, you know, there's those type of things, right? But you also build bonds. All the guys that I played with at West, like more than half of them, I saw them already, right? And, you know, it made it easy to be like, okay, I'm comfortable around these guys. You know, this is my family. And, you know, playing with them for 4 years at one of the more top levels, that's amazing, right? Like, you know those guys, you know what they could do, you know their ins and outs, and you know like they're kind of their weaknesses and their strengths, right? Whether it's exposing my practice and to make yourself look good, like on a breaking ball, okay, like later, like, coach, you see that? Yeah, I got my breaking ball right. Or but also the strengths, like, hey, like, like, you're good, like, let's go, like, this is what you should do, like, this is your strength, blah blah blah, all that, being a good teammate. And there's just those type of things, like building bonds. Like, I think that's the big thing, like, to me as a coach and as a player, I've seen guys grow up, but you also got the guys that did great in Little League and kind of think, oh yeah, I'm the king around here, all right, I'm going to take these years off and I'm just going to go into high school and breeze by it. They go off, do football, cricket, name it, I don't know, but they go out there and they think that they're the man still. And we got a couple guys like that in our high school. And you can't take baseball off. Baseball to me is the toughest sport in the world, and that's a big debate already. But yeah, you can't take baseball off. And if you think you're the king from Little League and you think you're gonna keep that skill, yeah, later you're out. But
absolutely, yeah. I mean, there's definitely debate if baseball is the toughest sport, maybe physically. Obviously, it's not football or UFC, but yeah. I think it's been proven that hitting a baseball is the hardest thing to do in 100%. All of sports, especially when you reach the higher levels and the velocity's higher. You got fastball, changeup, splitter, curve, slider, Green, how do you feel about Little League?
Oh, I think it's vitally important. I mean, I think that, to me, it's like Sandlot, the movie. I mean, it's that you're playing all the boys that you're going to school with, that you go off after school and go biking with, and you talk smack with, like,
in your neighborhood.
Like, hey, I'm playing Johnny on Saturday, and I'm coming out, like, my team's going to be like, and it's the Monday morning where, depending on who won, oh, I got some I got some things to say, right? Like, and that to me is like, so vitally important. It's also that, like, hey, after the game, like, maybe it's changed a bit, but I always remember after, literally games, like, it was going to the snack bar, getting my hot dog, getting a drink with the boys, and like either talking about the game or, whatever. It was just, I think that there's things that are around the game that are kind of just part of the culture and the nostalgia of it all that, like, kind of are still there. I mean, even if I go to a game, no matter where, it's like, okay, I got to get my drink, I got to get my hot dog, like, I'm good. I got my seat, I can enjoy the game. And I think so, literally, that's where you really, like Mason said, where you are able to have fun and get passion for the game. I think that, for parents that have asked me, like, hey, when should I make the jump? I always say it's got to come from the kid. When the kid has gotten to a level where it's either, he notices that the competition is not pushing him, or he's putting in the hours and hitting in the garage, or, hey, Dad, can you come out and throw with me? Like, I want to work out. Like, if the kid is pushing it, then I think as a parent, then it's your job to, hey, let's look at some other options here that, like, my kid obviously has a passion for this and he wants to push himself. And, okay, we're going to explore, travel teams. I mean, as far as, travel versus Little League, and what prepares you most, I mean, I think that travel prepares you competition more because you're going to see more better players. At least when we played in travel, like, travel was the best of the best. And since, me and Mace have, grown up, like, I think you saw a mass kind of, especially around COVID, where, it was like, hey, we're going to take our local rec team and we're going to make it a travel team. And it's going to become like, just a rec team, but called travel. And you see a lot more of those teams around. So what is real travel from kind of fugazi travel? Like, you can spot it when you're out there, but for a parent, you don't really know, like, the difference. You're just going to believe on, oh yeah, Steve's running it. Yeah, he ran baseball president for Little League for 20 years. And yeah, he started up a team, and you're like, oh, I'm in good hands.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing is you, as a parent, you just want your kids to be in a good situation. Good people that are going to watch after your kid and help guide them. But I mean, a personal story to me, I remember when I was 14, I was playing rec league for fall. And I played rec league all the way up until, like, high school. I'd play, like, a summer, or I'd play a one season, like, for a travel organization. But for the most part, I played rec. And I remember 2 guys came from travel and we're going to play that rec fall league. And everybody was like, oh, did you hear this? And I was like, man, like, what? Like, I'm the guy. Everyone knows me from pitching. I was like, who? Like, I don't give a damn. And
right.
So, like, I remember still to this day, my best friend of 22 years. He was my catcher all growing up, and so this guy Jeff Cowser, and he's travel ball kid. He's got, like, the the hot girlfriend. He's got the physique, and you're just like, okay, right? So we go in for warm-ups. And I mean, it was just like almost out of a movie, man. Like we go off to warm-ups. I go, he goes, and I knew his catcher. I forget I forget his last name. But we start throwing, right, warming up. And so then we get to where we're kind of actually like throwing, our bullpen. And, I throw one, then he throws one, and then it was just like both of our teams started coming around the fence, and we're just and they're like, it just became into like a pitch off, and then finally get to where he throws a curveball, and my brother was like, he threw down at 2, and he's like, let's go, and that was my pitch, and I was like, you know what? I'm not going to throw it here. I'm going to save that for the game. I'm not going to give away that one because that was like my bread and butter. So, and of course, to this day, he's still like, you should have thrown it. Like, but I mean, that game, like we ended up, I pitched a really good. I had a no-hitter going into the 5th. We won 7-2 that game. And I remember just being like, yeah, travel ball, get out, And that next day though, I remember Monday, because again, like you're so used to cutting up the next day. Yeah. I remember being like, I hope this guy doesn't find me. And I still remember I'm walking to class and he saw me and he puts his hand on me and he goes, dude, that was a great game. And he shook my hand and I was like, oh, yeah, you're right. That was like, it was.
Thanks for not beating me up.
Exactly. Thank you for not beating me up. But it was also for me, it was validation for me that it didn't matter size, travel ball, whatever that was, like I can, contend in that ring, but I would say that's not everyone's story or case. I was somebody that, I trained, in the off season and with guys like, in facilities like this year round. I mean, I just played rec because for me, it still gave me joy. It was still I got to play with the people around me in my community, and that made the game fun.
And those are the memories and the bonds that you make in Little League, because, that's where it all starts. Everybody starts in Little League, whether you go on to be a major leaguer, play high school, travel, whatever it is. And I love Little League. Like you said, Jake, I mean, when you were talking about your first home run, I literally got the chills. Like thinking about my first home run, like that moment is forever locked into my mind. And it was actually off one of my good friends who lived in my neighborhood. And we came to school on Monday, and you already know what happened. But, yeah, man, Little League is so much fun, playing with your boys at your school, from your neighborhood, hanging out. I used to just go hang out up there, like all the time. And, man, the cheeseburgers were so fire.
The little snack bar tickets.
Snack bar tickets.
Coming to aluminum foil. Yeah, dude. So I think, there's definitely pros to Little League. That's where you develop the love for the game, the passion. You get a lot of the base skills. I think some of the cons can be that, a lot of times, sometimes you get lucky and you have a really great coach in Little League, somebody who actually played the game at a high level and knows. And sometimes, and God bless all these coaches, because it's not
all of them are volunteers.
All of them are volunteers. Yes. No one's getting paid. A lot of times the league is like, hey, please, somebody come coach. So I'm not trying to, disrespect any of these dads, but some of them just don't have the knowledge. And sometimes you're taught incorrectly, and it can mess you up as a player. You develop bad habits, and then later in your baseball career, you have to try to go back and fix all this stuff. So that's something to look out for. But overall, Little League's awesome. Everyone loves it. But so let's talk about, when is the right time to start playing travel ball? And before I get there, actually, Green, you made a good point. We've all talked about this in the office many times. Like, I'm 31, you're 33, 30. Three. Jake's a young blood, what? 20. So for us, when we grew up, travel ball, there was like one travel team in your town, and you had to be elite to be on that team. Now there is 5 bajillion travel teams. A lot of them suck. And a lot of them, you're just getting the same Little League coaches in travel ball. Yeah. So you're not facing the same level of competition. You're not getting the same level of instruction. And I think that's a problem. And the other part of it I really don't like is it's hard to put together a true travel team, because this organization may have 3 of the best players. This one may have 3. This one may have 2. So all the best talent gets spread all around instead of it all just being on one team that can represent that area. Mm-hmm. So that's something I'm not really a fan of. But so let's talk about travel ball, pros and cons of travel ball. When is the right time to start playing? Mason, what are your thoughts on this?
You made a really good point, Will, is that travel ball is getting extremely watered down because of, some of these dads that think, oh, I have an awesome all-star team. My 12U all-star team just ran through districts, got to regionals, ended up losing in regionals. Now what's next in the fall, right? And oftentimes it's that coach taking that team and going, okay, we're gonna go play travel ball. And like Will said, there's probably 2, 3, maybe studs on that team that could really benefit from having 6, 7, 8 other studs around them to elevate their game. But instead, because they are comfortable, because they're with their boys, I feel like some of these kids end up taking steps backwards, because they're playing down to the level of competition that they're facing. To your one of your other points though, Will, too, is that I think that because there are so many teams, we don't really get to see the best out of our area.
Right.
And when we were growing up playing travel ball, there weren't these 3 different levels, right? There wasn't AA, AAA majors.
Right.
It was just one level. It was the tournament.
It was travel ball.
It was the tournament. And there were, 8, 10, 12, 15, 20 teams in that tournament that were all pretty much around the same level of skill.
Right.
So there wasn't having to break up these little league teams that are all-star teams that are turning into travel ball teams that don't know the rules of travel ball very well. They don't know how to pitch out of the stretch. They don't know what a balk is. They don't know how to lead off, right? And, that's where a lot of these teams end up at the AA level. You go one more step up, that's typically where you start seeing the better travel ball teams, the guys that have played together for a little while, and pretty much may have forgone Little League, in their 11 or 12-year-old years, but then you get up to that majors level, that obviously that's where everybody aspires to be,
right.
At least in travel ball, right? Is that you're facing the best of the best at that age group, in perfect game tournaments, NCS tournaments, etc. But I think, it's hard to say where some of these kids are at and when is actually the right time for them to start playing travel ball. And I think Nick brought up the point of, that's where a parent, if they don't know, ask. I think they need to talk to somebody that's been there before, that has seen the kind of caliber of baseball.
And not your little league head coach, like somebody who has at least probably played college or something of that nature.
Absolutely. And for everyone, it's going to be a little bit different. Some, I think, once they get to 13, I think starting travel ball at 13, I think that's too late. It's really difficult to play catch up with some of these kids that are playing travel ball starting at 9, and they know how to lead off. They know how to pitch out of the stretch. They know what a balk is. All this sort of stuff. So I think, in this day and age, 13's too late. 9's kind of right around the right time if the player has a passion for playing the game.
One thing I want to get y'all's opinion on, Mace, you can start on this too, just before we go all the way around, is the other part of travel ball having so many teams now is kids don't stick with one team. There's no loyalty. Kids get, they're upset that they didn't get to play, or mom and dad thinks little Timmy should be the starting shortstop or whatever. And then that kid just dips to another organization because there's a million of them. So there's that. And then there's also kids playing for multiple teams, just depending on what weekend it is and what tournament it is. And this is something I'm not a big fan of, because it just feels like, how can a kid learn how to deal with adversity and failure and struggle and not being the best if you're just going to pull his ass right out of there and go send him up the street? It's like kids need to learn that maybe you're not the best. Maybe you don't deserve to play. Are you doing those extra reps? Are you doing those things that should set you apart? So what do you, real quick, Mace, what do you think about that? And then let's go to Green and Jake.
Yeah, I think there are pros and cons there, right? If a player comes into a team, the coach pitches to the parents really well about the program and the caliber of baseball that we're going to be playing, that sort of stuff. And just maybe the kid is just not the right fit. And he ends up having to go find another team. To me, that's acceptable, very acceptable, or if the kid is butting heads with the coaches and not learning anything, that's another acceptable move.
Yeah.
But when it starts coming down to playing time, that to me is an unacceptable move. I think that kids, like you said, Will, kids need to learn how to deal with adversity. So if they're sucking for the first couple of tournaments, no, don't just jump ship, right? Learn, get better, right? Deal with that in a way that is, one, healthy, and two, that's not how the world works, right?
100%.
You can't just, okay, I'm sorry, I'm not very happy with my job, I'm just going to quit. Well, there is not another job out there. I mean, unless you're going from McDonald's to Carl's Jr., you know what I mean?
Right.
But there's not another job out there that you can find that's going to hire you right there on the spot.
100%.
You're going to have to grind for that. And now on top of that, if you're looking at a corporate job, now you're dealing with these graduating colleges or kids graduating from college, that are coming out of Cornell, Harvard, you know what I mean? And, it's going to get harder and harder and harder the more you go down in life. If it's like, oh, okay, I'm done here. Let me try to go over here. Well, over there may not want you, And now you're stuck with your thumb up your butt going, oh, crap, now what do I do?
Yeah.
Green, what do you got on this travel ball situation?
So to take the counterpoint to what Mason was saying, I think that as a parent, and I have a 7-year-old, so I've that having him in my life has changed different views of mine or softened things. I think that, to Mason's point, hopefully you have a parent that's realistic. I mean, let's start off with that, because there's a lot of parents that we run into that have unrealistic expectations of their child or a program or just how things are in the reality of baseball. I mean, I had somebody that I was listening to just yesterday. It's like, would you ask, your kid, like, hey, do you think your kid's going to be a billionaire? Like, that'd be like, I don't know. Well, there's like about 700 billionaires out there. There's 500 Major League Baseball like spots on a roster. So it's like when you sit there and go like, oh, do you think your kid's gonna be a major leaguer? It's, oh yeah, I mean, he's talented. Yeah, like that's less than a billionaire. Like it is very, very hard to make it to the top. And I think that when you have parents that have that unrealistic expectation, there's, it's like trying to rationalize with an unrational person.
Yeah,
it's not
talking
gonna
to a
happen.
brick wall.
Exactly. So, but to counter what Mace was saying, my original point was that I think that you have parents that realize that you have a finite amount of time. And if my kid's not going to get the reps on this team, where can I get my child to get the reps? Because if they don't get reps on this team, and they're not going to get reps, like, they're going to get 100 out of what could be 1,000 in this season, and that continues for 3 seasons. I got 300 reps compared to 3,000 on another team. The other team might stink. The other team they might not have as good coaching, but it comes down to repetition. Hopefully you have a trainer, you have a coach that's teaching you some of the good things that you can get, so you're getting good reps.
Yeah.
But I think that if you're not getting reps, like then you are falling
It makes
back.
sense to go.
It makes sense. And so I think that, like we're saying, that there's so many different travel ball programs. Like, yeah, I mean, if your kid, he's playing shortstop or whatever, and he's used to being the guy, and then he goes to some other travel organization, and you're sitting the bench, and it's like, okay, I have a fairly, I watch the game. I think he's a fairly good player. He's not making errors. Maybe he doesn't have as strong as arm as Timmy that's playing, but then you're going, okay, well, I feel like my kid's getting blackballed here. Okay, well, I'm going to go to another spot, right? And then maybe he's getting half the time. Well, I think he's better than, at the end of the day, I think as a parent, you have a lot of parents that are just trying to set their kid up for success. And I think a lot of that comes with understanding there's only so much time.
Yeah.
And unless you're really trust the process of trusting the coaches and you have those conversations, then I think you're always going to be kind of jumping ship. And
Right.
You see it in football now. Like you see guys in the transfer portal where, hey, now that they can go anywhere and I don't have to sit out a year, well, guess what? If I'm not playing or this coach I feel has lost confidence in me, then I'm going to go somewhere else. Or, hey, I don't like it around here. I don't like the coaches. I don't
Right.
like the playing time. I'm going to go because I have 4 years to show the NFL that I'm worth a pick.
Right.
I have 4 years to show that I can make this money in my life. So I think that you're seeing that definitely a lot in travel ball. That's going to happen. And things that we've always said in the office, and when these things have come up, is you're gonna keep some and you're gonna lose some. Right. And all you hope for is that you no matter if you lose somebody or ever, like, hey, you always got a home here, always willing to come back and grab you and teach you. And like, that's what we are, a bunch of teachers. Like, and we've all had teachers in our life that we don't really like. We've had teachers we loved. We've had teachers that are like, okay. And so hopefully they find a home that, they love their teachers, can teach them the right things, and hey, we're always, here to help.
And I agree, it makes sense to go where you're getting reps, but I think something I know my dad taught, and I'm sure all of y'all's dad taught you as well, is that when you sign up for something, you commit to that and you 100%. Do it for the season. So yes. I get going to get reps, but you need to wait till that season's over.
Yes.
You can't be on a team for 3 weeks and then jump ship. It's ridiculous. Jake, what do you got on this?
2 words, money grab. Money grab organizations is like, and that's coming a lot more with all the teams that you guys are saying, or the teams are just multiplying, right? So you got these money grab organizations that, will take a guy's money and be like, okay, well, we want a lot of money here. But then you see them bring in like a guy on a higher organization. They'll come in, play 1 term as a sub, right? And then the guy that's been doing well will just be at the bottom of the barrel, and then they're just going to put the reserve up, right? And I've seen that a lot. Like that even happened to me at another organization, right? I thought I was doing well. I was pitching well. I feel like I finally earned my spot starting at first. I mean, I was doing my job. And then we bring in 2 subs, and one of them ended up being my best friend. So I was like, kind of like, oh, like what? How do I feel about this? You know? And I ended up not playing that game. My best friend was playing first, and I lost my spot. And I'm not just saying that because he's sitting here and he's my boss, but the real way I found, like the player that I was this man right here, because I saw the way that he talked to my mom. I saw the way he talked to me, how he proposed the idea, and I was like, damn, okay, all right, you know what, I'm here, right? And he made it cheaper. He, gave us opportunities, and he evolved me as a player, right? Like everywhere I went, I was like, oh, they said, oh, you didn't throw hard enough. Oh, like this and that. He found a way to say, okay, well, you can throw here and throw here. This is your natural slot. Why aren't you doing both? And why, like that multiplies your pitches by double, right? That makes you a more effective pitcher. So, like the idea of jumping ship, it to me, like it all results in money and playing time especially, right? So he gave all of us opportunities, and I felt like I finally found my area, and being here, like that was because I tried all over the area. Like you guys said, there's so many teams. Finally found my home, and I had 4 years to jump ship. Not once did I even think about, okay, I need to go somewhere else. Like our whole team, God, I wonder how many players we had total, like wear a Wrecking Yard jersey for the class of 2022. Like there was a lot of guys.
It was quite a few.
Quite a few. Yeah, I would say at least 40 guys put on a jersey on our team, and it was like, and we had a couple guys like Coach Nate. I mean, I'm sure if you watch this podcast, you've seen Coach Nate, right? And we have a couple other guys that were there since day one, and like Justin Clapp, shout out Justin Clapp. Like those type of guys, they stuck around, and then those are the guys that I saw got better. But then all the other guys are like, oh, we're not winning, or oh, like we did one bad tournament, we're out. And I was just like,
do you think that prepared you, like from the standpoint when you did have 2 people come in and sub in and took over your spot? Like, I don't know when that happened, if it was like before high school or like during high school time.
It was way before. Yeah, it was before high school.
So do you think like that helped you at all when you got to high school and like, hey, like, yeah, there's somebody that's just like took my spot, or there's somebody that's better than me, and like, hey, I've got to, get better?
I would say it taught me a lesson. And that certain people have different views. Like your bosses won't always care about you. Kind of like how you said, like they will just say, okay, later, like we found a better option, like sub him in. With you, it was like, oh, all right, he had one bad game. Guess what? We're going to pitch him next tournament. I'm not giving up on this kid, right? And I remember my first tournament, like I think we had a guy I forgot who it was, but like he was talent, like more skilled than me. And he had a bad tournament. Right. And he was like, Jake, you got the ball. This is your time. And I was like, what? I was like, okay. All right. And then I ended up going up there, and I had a great game. So it's like, there's certain guys that care about you, will give you that opportunity. But if you have one bad game, or they have find a new sub, or they find a new player, oh, later, all right, this guy's in. Right. So.
And a lot of times for a player, seeing that your coach has confidence in you is absolutely huge, and it can take your game to a whole new level when you know, oh, my coach really believes in me. And not only that, he's not going to just rip me out of the lineup if I have one bad game or bad tournament. Mason, you have a final take on this?
Nah, I'm good.
Okay,
I'm
cool.
good.
Green, you got anything else?
No, I think that, it ultimately comes back to, who do you surround yourself with? Do you have people around you that are going to throw another log on your fire and believe in you and, for you to get better and for you to trust that process? If you're just constantly jumping ship in hopes to find that, then, by all means, carry on. But I think that, finding a place where you can settle in, have relationships, I know that's something that like I found here. I jumped ships from a couple different travel organizations because I didn't believe in, the culture. I didn't believe in what, was going on. And I found this place and, we care about, these kids. We want to see them, be, good young men off the field as well as good players on the field. And to me, that matters a lot. And so whenever we have people that have come back here that have been a part of our organization, if they've, playing in college, playing in high school, have left us for another organization, but have come back here to train or whatever. Like, I love the embraces, catching back up and being able just to talk, baseball and talk shop. That's what this is. It's a relationship business.
Yeah, 100%. Absolutely. And I think if you're a parent, one of the main things you really need to look at when you're choosing a travel organization for your kid is, what does the player development look like? Is this kid getting quality reps at practice? Do the coaches know what they're talking about? Can I visibly see that my kid is improving? Because a lot of times parents get frustrated when you're not winning the tournaments, or maybe you go out and you have a 0-3 weekend and they're like, oh, this is bullshit or whatever. But it's like, you really got to look at player development because that's what truthfully matters. And there's plenty of organizations that probably go out and win a bunch of tournaments, but like only a few of those kids are really getting that attention and that kind of thing.
Wait,
so
you mean that they're not going into like the Dodgers clubhouse and asking Mookie Betts like, hey Mookie, what did your travel ball team at 14U do in San Diego? Like, nobody cares.
No
about
one
wins.
cares. Nobody is gonna. Yeah, exactly.
Winning.
College coaches ain't even looking at that. So you really got to look at the player development, the integrity of the coaches. Do these coaches actually genuinely care about my kid? Because sometimes care means tough love. It means chewing that kid out a little bit or making them sit down or making them run. And a lot of times parents look at that like, oh, you yelled at my kid and he's sensitive. It's like, well, guess what? When he gets to high school, he's going to get yelled at. When he goes and has a boss and a real job in life, like, we're preparing them for life. And that's not always puppies and sunshine and butterflies. So we're going to wrap this. Sorry, go ahead.
No.
All right, yeah. We're we're at 32.
Damn,
All
I had
right.
something good.
All right, wait, go real quick. What do you got?
I was gonna say, like, winning is like, wrapping paper. It's just it's a facade. It's something that's easily to tear apart. Like, high school coaches don't care if you're winning in travel ball. Like, that's not a statistic that anybody
That's
looks
coming from a CIF champion high school coach.
The only time that winning matters is when it gets to college, because guess what? Those guys' jobs are on the line, because if they're losing, then they're not getting people to come to the program, which means they're not getting people to buy and, give their money to the university. That is where winning starts to matter. In high school, I won the whole damn thing. Like, but guess what? Where am I at now? I don't have a high school job.
Right.
I chose to come back here and work here, and I love, with the kids that I work with, but like, high school doesn't pay.
No.
So unless you're even working at a private school, and even then, guess what? There's guys that, lose their job after 4 years. Like, your landscape of high school coaching can change on a year-to-year basis, and you especially see it in California. So winning does not matter. It does not mean it sets you up for success at the high school level. It doesn't mean that you are going to be a Major League Baseball player. It matters that you find people that are in your corner, coaches that are going to develop you, that are going to get you ready mentally and physically for what is the next challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Great takes, everybody. I really enjoyed that segment. That was awesome stuff. So you're listening to Sandlot and the Crew, where Sandlot Radio Show meets Wrecking Yard Baseball and Softball. I'm your host, Will Kiger, a.k.a. Wrecking Yard Will, and we are here at the Wrecking Yard. Mr. Mason Morioka. I don't know what just came out there. Nick Green and Jake Hicks. I think we're going to come back for one more segment, so make sure you guys stick around. Special shout out to our sponsors, South Bay Credit Union and Restore Hyper Wellness. We'll catch you on the next one.